Get ready for incredible emotional highs and lows and imposter syndrome, because that's the first thing. That's what being an entrepreneur is. It's experiencing failure over and over and over and over again and getting through it.
If you're an entrepreneur who's built success but feels stuck in the grind, this podcast is for you. On the Live More Show, we give you short, powerful conversations to help you become more tax savvy, time rich, and totally free. Here's your host, Melanie Sikma.
All right, most people build their business for revenue. Today's guest is building hers for freedom. Q Moldrik is the CEO of Legacy Digital Media, a powerhouse marketing agency that helps brands grow nationwide. Q's story is proof that sometimes living more doesn't mean slowing down. It means showing up with intention now so that you can create the freedom you want later. Today, we're going to focus about what it looks like to build on purpose, handle the pressure, and stay focused when every part of you wants to quit. I'm super excited for this episode because I think it's going to be different than any of the others that we have. And so let's jump right into it. Q, you said that living more in this phase means creating more opportunities today for freedom 5 to 10 years from now. What does that actually look like in practice? And I guess what was a part of what made you make that decision as you're building this company?
Yeah, absolutely. We all are raised, we go to kindergarten, then we go to elementary school, middle school, high school, college. And there's just this trajectory of life that you're supposed to follow. And you're supposed to go get this big job outside of college. And I remember I did one corporate job for 1 year and I was miserable. And that's when I started figuring out I was an entrepreneur. And I didn't realize what came with entrepreneurship, right? I knew that I was a leader. I'm the oldest of 5 kids, oldest of 17 grandchildren that I'm very close with. And I've always been the go-to person to solve the problems, to put the process together, to coordinate everything. And I naturally just love the chaos of, organizing messy things, right? So I naturally fell into entrepreneurship, but I didn't know the consumption that it would take out of my life, right? It's this roller coaster of the most severe highs and the most severe lows. And those lows, you are in those times like, why am I doing this? Why don't I just go back to my W-2? Why don't I just be in a safe space where I'm not, on this Richter scale of survival 24/7. But then you have those highs, right? And those highs are your why behind it. So I will say, I'm 35 years old now, and I don't ever foresee myself not working. I think that I'm a busy bee. I like to be in the thick, in the trenches. I like to solve problems. I don't foresee myself in, retiring ever. But I do want to get myself to a point where I have freedom to work when I want to work, right? And that's not where I'm at right now. And I have started creating bits and pieces of it with my husband over the last few years, and that has given me a dose of the reality that I want to live down the road. So, it may not all be able to happen at once, especially in entrepreneurship. You get hit with a freight train at least 3 or 4 times a year minimum. And you get scaled back, you get scaled forward, and it's all over the place. So it's really hard to predict when this will be over, but it's like, when can I get the doses where I can? And those doses where I go and travel with my husband to the BVIs for a week, or we go to a legacy family conference, which, is still work, but it's still a little bit of pleasure at the same time.
It's fun.
Yeah, it's so fun, right? But you're tapped, you're out of your business. You're really just like in your own world that you don't have all these connections or, people needing you. And that is such a beautiful, beautiful space to just fill your cup, to get back to a baseline and then go back and hit the ground running. So I think I'm going to be like, I don't know if you're going to interview Tyson Cobb one day, but I think I'm going to be like a Tyson Cobb. I'm going to be somebody who's like actively working in the business, but traveling the world at the same time. And I think that's what my long-term looks like. But as far as how to get there, it's just getting baby doses of it while I can. There's going to be seasons right now. I'm in a thick season right now, and I don't have the opportunity to like tap out and, have me time. But I know that time will come. And when it does, I will take advantage of it.
Yeah, for sure. It can be hard. And a lot of the times too is everybody's in different seasons. And so especially you're online a lot because you're doing a lot of social media content for your clients and, just on there on your own. But you look around and you see so many people that seem to have made it early and fast, but we don't really see what goes on behind the scenes, and we don't see what goes on before they made it. Especially when we're surrounded by a lot of high caliber people like Tyson Cobbs or anybody
Yes.
in the legacy family. So, and especially you're in an area where there's a lot of successful people around you. Your husband works with a lot of successful entrepreneurs that have been working hard to get there. How do you fight the imposter syndrome that comes from comparing your building stage with somebody else's freedom stage that they've probably worked incredibly hard for, but you don't get to have a peek into that?
Yeah, I just got chills. Like being surrounded with entrepreneurs, on social media, yeah, it's great. But from behind the scenes, like Gunnar, all of our friends are entrepreneurs, right? And I get to see what they do to get to where they are, what you see on social media. Imposter syndrome is going to be a redundant feeling that you have for the rest of your life, as long as you're an entrepreneur. I think the best way to explain it, it's like the first time something happens to you, it's so painful, right? It's so scary. Like, whether it's rejection, whether it's failure, whether, it's loss, grief, whatever it is, you lose your first client or your first employee quits, or, something just does not go at all according to plan. It goes completely opposite. It's like paralyzing that first time, right? You have a net loss, right? That month, right? It's paralyzing. And then you get through it, right? We navigate through it. We keep going, and then it happens again. Still painful, but it's just a little bit less painful. You built a little bit of resilience, a little bit of armor, a little bit of strength, but it never gets easier, but it's more manageable, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
So I think right now in my season that I'm in, where, we're in Q4, business is crazy, sales are all over the place, like AI is taking over the world, right? And I'm like, what am I doing? I don't eat this is all new to me, but my body might feel it, my energy might feel it, my team might feel that energy, my husband certainly feels that energy, but it doesn't paralyze me as much as it did before, right? I think it's just the beauty in imposter syndrome is the resilience that you grow through each time you experience it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that does make sense. I remember this was a couple years ago. I'm partners with my dad in our, one-stop tax strategists, and we had I forget what the actual issue was, but in my mind, it was the end of the world and everything was falling apart. And I'm like, and he's like, this is not a big deal. Like, cause he has 40 years of experience and perspective that I don't have.
Yep.
And so that's where it's helpful to pull from people that have had more experience.
Yes.
And whether it's the same industry or not, they can give you some wisdom and I guess just give you some perspective that you don't have. And you get
100%.
that perspective by going through it.
100%. And they say, we've heard it, leadership is lonely. It is, but that's why having like good coaches and good partners and, a good support system to get you through with validation. Like you are going to be okay. You will get through. Like sometimes you just have to be told that by somebody and they're like, okay. Right. But it's crazy how we warp our minds into like worst case scenario when in reality, that's just not ever going to happen. Right. It's just, but it's nice to have those people in your corner for sure. For sure.
Yeah. I listen to Layla Hermosi a lot, and she even has imposter syndrome and she even second guesses herself. So if she does, and she's like 1,000 years down the line of me, it's like that, then I know it's just not going to go away.
Yeah.
And so you just have to be comfortable with the uncomfortable.
It should be like when you write out your job description, the first thing should be like, get ready for incredible emotional highs and lows and imposter syndrome. Because that's the first thing that you have to, if that's what being an entrepreneur is, it's experiencing failure over and over and over and over again and getting through it, right? That's what it is. It's not, oh, I'm an entrepreneur and I have time freedom and I pay myself whatever I want. No, it's quite the opposite, actually. So it's just this beautiful form of resilience.
There we go. And then you can look back and be so proud of yourself for the person you've become through it all.
And that's a part of getting through it. Like, I don't think any of us, I mean, I know I don't. One of my coaches, Scott Hannes, who you know well, I have to talk to him multiple times a month and have him hype me up. He's like, Q, look at how far you have come. Look at what you have done. Look like from this component, this component, this component. And then I sit there, I'm like, oh, I forgot I did all that, right? Because I'm just so focused on that forward trajectory. I don't really take time to sit and say, good job. You're crushing it, you know?
Yeah, for our listener, I want you to get that is take time away. I'm sure you can attest to feeling the way that we're explaining right now. If you ever feel that way, just have somebody maybe help you, or just pull yourself back and look down and say, what have I accomplished? And try to find wins in the chaos and the stress, because that's what allows you to enjoy the journey. If you can just pull yourself out and pat yourself on the back, because not many business owners make it to $1 million in revenue, even past that. And so if you're at that point, you've made it, isn't it like 4% make it? Is that what the stat is? So 4%, you've made it past that. You've done a pretty darn good job. Give yourself a little credit. All right. So Q, your marketing philosophy, you said that it focuses on evolution, not just throwing everything at the wall. How has that mindset helped you scale your business sustainably?
Yeah, absolutely. So the real story behind that was we started out as a social media marketing company, and that's all we did, just social media marketing. And I found that after we did social media marketing for a while, our clients were like, okay, well, what's next, right? And that's when we started adding in other service offerings like websites and paid ads and email marketing and reputation management, all of that. Like, you name it, we could do it. If we don't do it, we have a partner that does it. And then all of a sudden we have all these service models, right? Which was very overwhelming. And when a client sits down and they're like, well, what do I need? Most agencies will say, hey, here's this $20,000 package and you're going to do it all, right? You're going to do the branding, the content creation, the social media management, the PPC, the SEO, the ABCDEFG, right? And they throw all this marketing money at the wall and they don't know what works or doesn't work. And I just hear that over and over and over and over again. And it's a very frustrating feeling for me as a agency owner. And marketing is a slow build. That's another thing I want to make sure all my clients know in the beginning, this is not an ROI in the next 30 days, right? This is a long-term commitment, and it's going to take a lot of consistency, a lot of tweaking, but we want to do it methodically, right? We don't want to just stack on 10 different service models and hope for the best. So we like to start, depending on the client. For example, somebody comes to me and they have nothing, right? They're like, we have a company and we want to start marketing it. So first things first, let's get you a website. We're going to start with the website. We're going to start with your Google business profile, your Apple Maps profile, your Google reviews. Let's start to get the baseline credibility, laid out, right? Most people will search for you on your website or through Google and find your website. Then when we're ready to start bringing more cultural initiatives into the business, we want to start hiring more people. We want to start attracting more clients. We want to start hosting events. Let's talk about social media, right? That's where we could show more behind the scenes of everything. And we're going to start with an organic approach because, again, I'm not going to have you spend all this money on paid when we don't know what organically works, right? So we'll look at the organic data and say, wow, their audience, it's called social listening, their audience really likes the content where they're traveling with their family or they're doing, talks, educational talks while they're, driving or they're moving around, right? So we're going to take a paid component and put that behind that strategy, right? So then we evolve back. So I call it a digital evolution plan. And if your brand is staying the same and you're doing the same thing month after month after month with your marketing initiatives, that's so wrong, right? Your brand should always be evolving. The data is always changing. The platforms out there are changing, right? So you have to tweak your strategy consistently. So that's why, it's important to have a team that could, support you in that because it's impossible to do on your own these days. But yeah, it's one step at a time. It's not all at once.
I was looking at a stat, and I just pulled it up earlier. And in a pilot study with 77 early stage entrepreneurs, participants in a program that included a focus on management strategies like delegating. So if they were able to delegate important, like just different tasks, 70% of them had a reduction in self-reported stress levels.
Yes.
And so what that tells me is if you're able to delegate, and there's a number of other studies that I looked at, but delegation equals less stress, more happiness. And so for our listener, this is just to tie in hiring people like Q and her team or anybody else that specializes in things that you don't have time for. Because I know I don't have time to look at all my data on social media, my websites, all of that. It really allows you to excel in the things that you're good at. And so
when I talk to clients, and this is to the listener, you're buying your time back, right? You're investing in marketing, great, but you're buying your time back. And at the end of the day, if sometimes, like, we have a lot of, Gen Xers and older millennials that come to us and they're like, oh, we don't do this social media thing, but we know it's important. People tell us we need to do it. And I don't understand it. It's so complex. I don't know if I'm doing it right. First of all, yes, it is important, but would you rather sit there and try to figure it all out on your own or outsource it to somebody else who doesn't really know what they're doing? No, like, invest in a good marketing company. In my opinion, a local marketing company that can allow you to work on your business, not in your business, right? So we're a service that offers both, right?
That's awesome. Now, when you're balancing client work, you're the CEO of your company. And so I know myself, I'm the CEO of One Stop Tax Strategist. There's just a lot that goes with that. So when you're balancing client work, team leadership, growth, and then just personal stuff, how do you decide what gets your focus each week? Do you have a plan or a strategy for that?
Well, I would like to say I do. So I remember the very first job I interviewed for after college, they asked me this question. If you have this task, this task, this task, this task, this task, how do you know which one to do first? How do you know which one is most important? And that's something I've really carried, into my leadership and, how I handle those endless to-do lists. First of all, I will say my job is to bring revenue to the business. And I have to constantly remind myself that because as I was building the business, I was really, first of all, I was doing it on my own. I was a true solopreneur wearing all the hats. But then I started delegating, I started hiring people, I started delegating, but I still was so attached to building out the process. That's like one of my superpowers, right? I love process. I love, making, like I said, making chaos make sense. So I've had to learn to step out of operations, which is still very hard for me. So I know that when I'm looking at my calendar, first of all, time blocking and color coding my calendar. I wish I could I'll send you a picture of it. It's ridiculous. Every single minute of my day is blocked with something, whether it's administrative work, drive time, personal workouts, business meetings, whatever it is. So that's something I really focus on. But I look at my calendar, I'm like, how many sales meetings do I have on my calendar for the next 2 weeks, right? That is my number one priority because that is most urgent, right? Out of all these tasks are all important, but that's most urgent because my job is to break money into the business. And then I delineate from there, right? So, I would say, it's focusing on sales, generating activities is what I focus on and prioritize. I also work nights and I also work weekends. We just got to get it done, right?
Yep.
Yep.
So what I'm hearing you saying is, kind of what's important for what lane you're in, what your role is and what your goal is in that role. And then from there, you can look at your calendar and then prioritize based on what your job is to fulfill for the business.
100%. Yep. And I'm not going to lie, like I still get racked into things I shouldn't. And my team is like, Q, this is not valuable of your time. I love it when my team tells me that. I'm like, yes,
that's great.
Do it. But they'll sit there and say, Q, you don't need to be like sitting in on these meetings. We got it, right? It's just more so me wanting to have a pulse on things. But it's 100% focusing on what my lane is, what my priorities are there, and then delineating from there.
Yeah, we have a something called, it's a no bypass rule in One Stop Tax Strategists. And basically, I'm not allowed to delegate something to someone that my sister oversees without going through her. And so what that does is it makes sure one, communication's taken care of, but then it also it allows it to be off my plate. It's actually trusting the people that are in that role to do it well. And also then I can't just throw a wrench and make chaos happen. Because usually it's the people on the top that are the worst at that.
Oh.
And I broke it the other day.
I like throw spaghetti at the wall, and my team is like, and that's so my team. I don't know if you guys do this, but you should. My team, I have 2 execs on my team, and we have 2 docs. I have a doc that I talk to both of them about, and then I have a doc that I talk to my COO about, and I don't say anything to them. No ideas, urgent, even if it's urgent, I put it in the doc and we wait until we're meeting where we could sit down and talk about it all at once. That's okay. I guess that's a way to control the chaos.
The reactive things that happen. Yeah.
Yes.
I broke our no bypass rule the other day and nobody called me on it, but I realized it. And so I called myself out. I'm like, I just realized I bypassed. Call me out next time. Because it does, like you said, you mess up, things happen, but if you have those rules in place, it does help create the boundaries. And so for our listener, if you have too much on your plate, it's probably 1, you're not delegating enough, but 2, you might not have people in the lanes. You might not have defined rules. And so you want to look at your team, see if there's any clear defined roles that are not in place. And if, then you can work out what are their roles, what are their responsibilities in that role, and then make sure you're trusting them to do that. If you can't trust them, then 1, maybe you have the wrong person, or maybe you're a control freak. And I know I've hit both of those things. So you got to kind of look inward too a lot of the times. But if you're feeling overwhelmed, there's too much on your plate, then maybe there's just some things that we can look at to restructure. So that's great, Q.
Great.
What do you think most entrepreneurs get wrong about marketing their own businesses in those early years? Because I know this is a high level of stress for a lot of people. And so since you're the expert in that, what do you think they get wrong about marketing their own business?
Yes. So first of all, I feel like when you're starting a business earlier on, or in your early years, you should always have a marketing budget. And it doesn't need to be anything crazy. It just has to be something. And that marketing budget might be investing into networking groups. It doesn't necessarily have to be, going to a marketing agency. But to me, marketing is how do you get your name out there, right? How do you create brand awareness? So in the beginning, I get not everybody has $10, $15, $20,000 a month to throw at a marketing program. So what can you control? First of all, social media, it's a free platform, right? And you could go on, and you don't have to be perfect, but get started on it. Post 2 to 3 times a week and stay consistent with it, no matter what the data looks like, right? That way you're already building up that audience. You're already building up that, exercise muscle memory of okay, I'm going and traveling to this event. I need to take content and I need to post about it, right? And then all of a sudden, that muscle memory becomes a strategy, and that strategy turns into opportunity that you wouldn't have had if you didn't do it, right? And that opportunity allows you to outsource it, right? So always you have the ability to create a marketing budget, even if you're going to a free networking event, right? That you have to have something marketing oriented in the beginning, okay? Now, where a lot of businesses go wrong is when things get tight, they cut marketing. And it blows my mind. Listen, I get it. I'm a business owner too. When that P&L is pinching me, I want that bottom line to be black so bad. And I will do anything to make that bottom line black. I will cut whatever I need to cut and, to make that happen. But what does that do? What opportunities are you cutting? And I think, a lot of, especially in Q4, we experience it every year. People are looking at their end of year P&L. They're budgeting for 2026, and marketing gets cut, and you see how it affects their business. And it's something that I really wish people would change their mindset on, and I always tell people in the beginning, this isn't instant gratification. I say the type of marketing that we do, you'll have a ROI depending on the service, but it's return on opportunity. And when you stop that consistency, all of a sudden, nobody knows about you. Nobody knows what's going on in your life. Nobody knows about the deals that you're running. Nobody knows, about, anything. So when you show up at a networking event, no one knows, right? So everything marries each other in certain components. And I'm a big believer of feet on the ground marketing and digital marketing. They are husband and wife, right? And if you cut out the feet on the ground, it's not going to be as impactful, in my opinion, right? I know, Melanie, when I come and see you, I'm like, oh my gosh, how was your trip there? How are the kids? I haven't seen them in forever. I saw that cool place that you went. Oh my gosh, I saw that you partnered with this person, or now you have a podcast, right? It creates so much conversation that we would have never had if you didn't share it with us, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, that would be my biggest pet peeve, I would say, is when things get tight, business owners cut marketing.
Yeah. And really, marketing should be a money machine. If you put dollars in, $1 in, you'll get $5 to $10 out. And so if it's done properly, then it's really silly to cut it, because you're literally like throwing away a dollar, vending machine.
Absolutely.
And yeah, I would agree. Like for me, any clients that we get from social media are people that either were referred by somebody that I met in person, or met me in person and then followed me for a while.
Absolutely.
And so it's also like somebody that maybe had an appointment with me but didn't go through with services because maybe it wasn't the right thing at the time, but they followed me and they tracked. So then when it was the right time, then they jumped on board. So a lot of the times, like you said, it's slow growth, but they go hand in hand and you have to do both. And so definitely one without the other is not as powerful.
Absolutely. And I love that you said that. That's like so important. In any service model, like for me, investing, I might not be in a financial state to invest $500,000 into a deal, but I've been following a lot of real estate investors, and best believe when my business blows up and I have that money, I know who I'm going to work with, and I because I trust them. I've been following them. They've been consistent, right? And those deals might not happen for, years, right? But it's worth it in the end, right? So I do agree with you 100%. It's a way to stay top of mind all the time.
Yeah. All right. We're going to shift to more like real talk. So you mentioned when in a private conversation about those one time a month moments where you privately break down and then you just question everything. I've had those myself, and I think every entrepreneur would be lying if they said they didn't have those moments.
Yeah.
So how do you pull yourself back from that mental edge? What's helped you when you're questioning everything and losing it? How do you pull yourself back from that?
Yeah. So we're being vulnerable and transparent right now. I recently have had a little mental breakdown, and it was after I go to this conference every year, and it's an AI conference, and I went in and I was so overwhelmed with the amount of information that I learned. And I went in feeling so good about where we are with AI. Like, I've been talking about AI for years, and I have an AI R&D intern that works with me hand in hand. Like, we're constantly implementing internal processes and looking at new service models. But when I went to this conference, I walked away and I was in tears, and I was like, I don't know if I could keep up with this, right? And I have been running so hard for so long and trying to get this business where I want it to be. And now this is a huge, huge Everest that I don't know if I could get over by myself. And it was a couple of weeks, and it wasn't until about this week I was like, okay, I'm going to be all right. And what I did is I went and started talking to other agency owners, because nobody else understands it, right? I can't go talk to my husband about it, right? I love him, but he can't relate. I have my business coaches, but they help me more so, with the business growth, not but when it comes to the leadership and, P&Ls, but they don't know about the technical side of AI, right? And it was scary. And I had this huge long-term imposter syndrome for several weeks. And I started talking to some agency owners here in Charleston, and some that are AI native agency owners, and some that have just exited their agency, and some that are in the same boat that I'm in. And I just have to remember, like, we're in Charleston, South Carolina. We're not in Silicon Valley, number one, right? Like, where all this stuff is happening. And my business is successful and it's working and everything's fine right now. I jumped to that worst case scenario, and I'm like, oh my God, I have to change everything, or I have to exit fast. And that impulsivity creates so much anxiety. And it's just for me to get out of it, I have to go talk to like-minded people and I have to get vulnerable with them and say, what are you doing? Right. And then they talk me off the ledge. Right. That the first guy was like, Q, you're crushing it right now. He's like, you're doing so much more than everyone else. I think you need to go out and create an AI playbook and coach other agencies on what you're doing, right? That's a way to get ahead of it. Abby, my COO, of course, I talked to her about it. And she was like, I think you need to open up an AI wing of the business and start consulting. So all of it, like I'm getting these consistent feedback loops from people. And now I have a little bit of a plan. It's not set in stone, but it's better than where I was. So for me, it's just don't be lonely, right? Don't be lonely in leadership. Like use your resources, reach out to people, reach out to your competitors, right? I'm doing like this little mini interview series on social media. It's called Beyond the Brand with Q. And I went and interviewed my biggest competitor in Charleston this morning. And her and I are really, 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 really close. And I'm like, so how are you? And she's like, girl, it's crazy right now. Like it's crazy. But we're just taking it one day at a time. And just to know other people are experiencing that and they're still surviving, I was like, okay, I'll be okay. So that's my best piece of advice right now.
Is to talk to others. What I heard, if you don't mind me analyzing,
go for
is
it.
that you were in your head thinking that it's all on you. And I'd say for our listener, this is when you turn and go, it's not on me. I have a great team that I can depend on, or other people that might see things differently that you can turn to. And so it doesn't have to be your responsibility just because it's your business. And so that's where you can turn in whatever the fear is, usually we make it much bigger than what it actually is. And so just look at the people around you that you can lean on outside of yourself, because usually sometimes it's what you're afraid of is actually what could pivot you and prop you up to success. So
I just got chills. 100%. I'm such a believer in that. When we're in our lows in life, that means like God just has something awesome coming, right? And I've tried to keep that mentality. And it does it, but it's just such a moment. Sometimes you feel like you have no control over it. And then it, again, like I talked about with imposter syndrome, like it just gets a little lighter each time. So.
Yeah. So to tie off of that, how is your response to fear over or crisis, like something like this? How has that evolved from year 1 to year 5? What would this thing happen? What would that look like year 1?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So Tim, my business partner, love him. I would go to him when I lost a client, and I will say this, when you feel that deep about your business, that means you care. It means that's passion, right? That is real passion. That's a side effect of, passion. Passion you think is beautiful, but passion also is like when you love something so much, it creates so much anxiety and fear, right? So I remember when we started experiencing loss of clients, which is inevitable, right? It happens in the business, but I was like, oh, what? Why would you fire us? Like, we've worked so hard. We've done all these things. We've provided all these opportunities for you guys. And not that I was insulted. I was sad. I was scared. I was like, am I doing something wrong? But it went deep. And I would go to my business partner almost in tears, and I'd be like shaking. And it was just such a physical feeling. And he's like, Q, you're fine. We'll get you new clients, right? And I was like, okay. Right. And it's that same thing from year one. So now I've lost a few clients. It's Q4. People are cutting us. And I just have this, yes, definitely fear, definitely anxiety. I'm feeling it right now, but I'm like, I just got to get more clients, right? And we're going to be fine. I don't go into apocalyptic mode anymore. I go into, we're going to get through it. Let me just get some more clients. And this really sucks right now. And we have to make some, decisions maybe we don't want to make in transitioning things within the business, but we will survive, right? So I think, again, it's just like that anxiety is still there. It's just not as apocalyptic, Yeah.
Well, and that's where knowing how to market or being able to have a team that knows how to market is really key, because then it's not as big of a deal. You can replace them pretty quickly.
Yes.
But I can relate to that. Like, I've lost sleep and stuff over not even like somebody being unhappy with our services, but just the fear that they might be.
Yeah.
Because, it's because you care though. So that's a good thing. So if our listener is here, if depending on where you're at in your stage of business, just know that like we probably make things so much bigger than they are. And just having somebody to go to talk sense is so important. So whether you get that through a mastermind group, through local groups or business partner, a coach, whatever it is, peers, it's just have somebody to go to that understands where you're at. Because
Absolutely.
that's the hardest part.
Yeah. I know this like might be counteractive or counterproductive or counterintuitive, I guess, but like go to your competitor, right? Go to somebody you compete with that's like on your level and be like, hey man, I'm not trying to take your clients. I'm not trying to like, are you good? Cause like, I just want to make sure I'm on the same page here. And I think there's so much beauty in that, breaking that mold with your competitor and having that collaborative mentality. It goes a long way.
Yeah, I love that. Love that. Now, let's go into more digital strategy, marketing strategy. You said that great marketing is just great storytelling with data, and you kind of alluded to the data earlier. What's one way a business owner can start improving their story today without maybe a huge budget if they don't have a huge budget for it, but they want to start improving that? What's one little tip that you can give them?
Absolutely. I am a big believer from a social media perspective that creating a personal brand within your business is probably more important than what you're selling, right? Because especially, I mean, we're talking about the industries that we're in, or how we met each other, real estate investors, for example. Nobody wants to talk about or listen to you talk about like your deals all the time or what's on the market or what you closed, right? That doesn't need to be
we got taxes. That's probably the most boring,
taxes,
we'll say.
right? Love you, but don't want to learn about taxes all the time. But there is a 100%, a kind of like a ratio of that content is very, very, very important. It's consumed more intentionally by somebody when there's that connected point, right? So if I'm seeing like all these amazing things that you're doing with your family and going, to Africa and, paying business partnership with your father and how involved you guys are with your children. And, that's what makes me just trust you as a human being, right? And then when you start talking about taxes, immediately there's that connection there. I trust you, right? People don't like to be sold to at the end of the day. So when I say creative storytelling, that, seems a little, you're like, oh, I'm not a creative storyteller. It's everything is content at the end of the day within reason, right? Like, to each his own. Like, I don't think a lot of things should be shared on the internet. I think some things should just be kept personal, but like having a balance of, how I share my family. And, I think one of the most well-performing pieces or concepts or pillars of content that do well on my page are my interactions with my husband, right? And we have such a funny dynamic, and
it's a hilarious interaction. So that's part of why you got a great husband.
Like we're entrepreneurial. We have such a fun banter with each other, and people love it. People love seeing like how we interact behind the scenes, right? But I also get on and I showcase podcasts of me speaking, and I talk about the importance of marketing, but and those start to perform so much better when I put the personal stuff in there. So I think, to sum it up, it's finding a healthy balance. I always say, let's pick 4 to 5 pillars of your life, right? Business being one of them, business being the end goal of why you're doing this, right? But what are those other 4 pillars? So mine is travel, mine is family, mine is my animals. I'm like in this
chickens,
like my mom chicken era right now. And, maybe it might be something, and that pillar might pivot. Like I go on puzzle sprees and I like to share my puzzles, and I have so many people reach out there like, oh my gosh, I love that puzzle, or oh my gosh, I paint to color too, or I love Legos. And it just creates these little micro followings, these micro connections that could lead to something in the future. So like when I have events and pop-ups here in Charleston, they're not sold by me posting an event. They're sold by like my chicken fans and my Gunner Q fans and my, and my travel fans. So it's something that, and when I say fans, like followers, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, does that make sense? Does that answer?
That's great. Okay. Yeah. People like to do business with others that they know, like, and trust. And so it builds that know, like, and trust aspect. So I love that.
Yes, ma'am. Mm-hmm.
I heard somebody else say, it's like you're inviting them in to your coffee table. Like you're basically inviting them into what it is, it was you're having a party, you're inviting them into the party, and your party's your life. And
Yep.
so it's they get to be a part of it and not just like look at it. It's they get to be a part of it. And so they
Yeah.
feel like they're part of your story.
Absolutely. And you asked a question on the data. The data is looking at how many views, how many engagements, how many shares, how many saves. So when you're looking at those 4 or 5 pillars and you're like, wow, when I say people really love the stuff with me and Gunnar, that's because we get hundreds of likes and comments and shares and but then if I post something of me cooking, nobody and I get nothing, I'm like, okay, nobody wants to hear about that one. So that's how you kind of pivot what you post, right? And I think consistency is key with it as well. Don't post something one time and it doesn't pop off. Like, oh, people don't like watching me cook, right? Do it a few times, right? Try it in different variations. And then if you might start to have some conversations, and that's when you know you've built a connection, right?
Cool. I love that. All right. Now, how, I guess you've worked across so many industries just
Yes.
because you've worked with so many different clients. What's one universal marketing principle that always holds true?
Having a brand. I mean, I know it
Is that
sounds
personal brand?
it's just a brand, right? And so many people, and realizing that your brand is what your consumer perceives of you, not what you think you are. And I think that's something where a lot of people get confused. They're like, oh, I want to do this, and that, right? And you post it online and people are like, this guy's a douchebag, right? Like they don't resonate with it. Your brand is the perception of your followers. So I think that's a universal principle that can be applied to any industry. We get so caught up in, oh, we have to be posting this many posts and this many pieces, like this, all these types of content on all these different platforms. But does your audience like that? And I think we get caught up in the deliverables. Like a lot of our clients are like, we want 7 posts a week on 7 platforms. 18 days a week, like it's unrealistic, and people get annoyed with that, right? But there might be some followers that are obsessed with it. So it's like, again, going back to the data and continually evolving the strategy, because that does change as well. But yeah, I would say having a brand, right? So knowing who you are, what you represent, your mission, your core values, your audience, your brand voice, your everything. And then with that, understanding as you're developing it that it's not what you want it to be, it's what your followers perceive of you.
I really like that because I'm thinking of one person in particular. I'm not going to say their name. There's somebody that has come and spoken to some events, and their marketing strategy does not tie in with who they are as a person, and it does not align. And I've noticed, like online, super douchebag, like in my mind. I perceive them as a douchebag. Like they are all about like just money, material, all me, like worship me. And then in person, super humble and like chill, really like able to help, wanting to help. And I'm like, who you are online does not align with who you are. And actually I would rather see who you are because that's a good person.
Absolutely.
And so it's kind of helpful to have like a third party come in and look and see and kind of give them like, who do I perceive to be? So that's where you guys could come into play.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
That's good. Okay. So what, I guess, let's shift to the living more. So at One Stop Tax Strategist, our mission statement is to bring peace to taxes and purpose to profits to help you live more. So we help clients live more in the sense that we open up more money to accelerate their dreams. It gives them the ability. One, we take the pain in the butt out of taxes off their plate, but then we also just help accelerate their dreams with their savings. How does your company help your clients live more?
Yeah, absolutely. So I back in the day, my team, I was thinking because my team would like roll their eyes at me right now, but we had this like little saying. Our business is called Legacy Digital, and we're all about. I mean, if you think about it, just it says it for itself. We want to create a digital persona that creates legacy for you, right? So at the end of the day, like what it goes back to who I am as a person. I love helping people, right? As long as I'm helping people in any capacity, I'm going to be a happy and joyous person the rest of my life. And when I started getting into this business, really any business I've worked in, it's all about supporting other startup companies and helping them grow, right? And taking things off of their plate so they could focus on the art of what they do, right? So they're not wearing that typical entrepreneur 20 hats every single day. So that's the first part, right? Allowing our clients to create more space so they could stay in their zone of genius. And with that, blowing their brand up so people know about them. I just think that's so beautiful. Like I get to take something that someone is so passionate about, and my team does, and they get creative with it and work with our clients to bring it to life. And that's just so like, I get so excited about it because I get to sit with so many business owners who just love what they do, right? I mean, it could be something from a personal brand where they're, wholesaling homes to somebody who's selling a golf ball, right? But they sit down, they're like, look at this golf ball. It's the best golf ball that you will ever, like, we put so much time and love and energy and heart and money into this golf ball. And I'm like, fuck yeah, we're going to blow this golf ball up, right? So, and we get to sit down and we get to get creative and like do things that, most people wouldn't be able to do on their own with the intention of selling their product so that they could live their life, right? They could stay in their zone of genius and create a company so that they could have their own financial freedom down the road.
That's great. Love that. Now, you're building a company now to buy freedom later.
Yes.
But you still want to not just be lost in chaos every day. So how do you still find little ways to live more, even when you're purposely grinding you're stuck in the grind right now, but purposefully, you're not stuck, I guess. You're choosing to work hard right now, but what are some ways that you still live more in that?
Absolutely. So I do believe like it's what's small. Like I'm a big believer in finding joy in small things because the small things are achievable, they're attainable, you could go home and do them every single night. So that's something really important for me is creating time and space for those micro moments of happiness that inevitably create joy. So for me, I know it sounds silly, but I love my chickens. Like going outside and just like hanging out with my chickens is so peaceful. I could do that every single day, right? I love paint to colors right now. That's kind of like my little piece of therapy. I'm still being really productive. I'm achieving something, right? I'm building this beautiful like painting. But it just gives me such a moment of silence, of peace, of just like I don't have anything else like the chaos and the noise. So those micro moments are awesome. And those I could grasp all the time. And trust me, as much as I wish I could just travel once a month and go everywhere, anywhere, whenever I wanted to, that's not realistic. But those moments are also very important for me to take. And I might have to plan a trip 4 to 6 months down the road, but taking those week-long trips where I could go into a different world and just tap out. I just went to Mallorca, Spain, about a month and a half ago, and it was a health and wellness retreat, and it was all about learning about happiness and joy and how to implement those into your life. And I came back and I was like, holy shit, like I didn't know I was capable of feeling that way. And it was so good to know that I, first of all, had the opportunity to do that. Second of all, I have the capacity to be calm and not so overstimulated and be present and sit down and read a book and, interact with people without rushing to have to go somewhere else. It was so beautiful knowing that I still had that in me because I'm just like a da 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 da. Like that's just my energy. I'm an intense person. So just knowing that I have that, right? I could carry that around with me on a day-to-day basis. So I think it's the micro moments that you could create every day and the macro moments like big trips and truly planning prior to that trip to tap out, right? Prepare your team, prepare your clients, work your ass off until you get on that flight and then turn it off, right? Not gonna lie, I was on my phone every day, checking my Slacks, checking my emails, and everything was fine. Nothing happened, and it's just, it's something that you just psych yourself out. You're like, oh, if I'm not there, the business is going to blow up. But no, it's fine.
You've built a capable team that can handle it.
Yes.
Yeah, that's cool. Awesome. So if you could go back to year one of Legacy Digital Media, what advice would you give that version of yourself about either patience, progress, and purpose, or just anything else? What advice would you give year one version of Q?
what you what you think you know is not going to happen. Don't get so caught up in these grandiose expectations. Just allow for the pivots to happen and everything will be okay. Like everything will be okay. Trust your team. Trust your team. That's a big one. I have a young team and, they're in their first, second jobs out of college. So when you're building a business and you have a young team and you're working on professional development while building out a big service model, it's overwhelming. But when I learned to relinquish control and allow them to fail and watch them grow, it relieved so much stress and anxiety from me. Because I'm like, okay, they got it. They're fine, right? Like, failure is important, right? Failure is important. And I just was like, just so in everything that I didn't need to be. So I would say just prepare for the pivots and trust your team.
Awesome. Thank you for that. And thank you for keeping it real, reminding us that living more doesn't always mean slowing down. It means showing up intentionally right where you are. So I just want to thank you for that. And I want to speak to the listener real quick. If you're listening right now, feeling like you're on that, same build mode grind, I want you to not tune out, because the next episode will dive even deeper into how to create focus, how to create margin and purpose while you're growing your business. So just let it roll. You won't want to miss it. If you want to get in touch with Q and her team, check out the show notes. I'm going to get everything that she would like to share out, whether there's freebies or social media clips. We'll have all that in the show notes. So make sure you check that out and hit her team up. I know she cares. She's incredible and she knows her stuff. And so make sure you hit her up, and we'll see you on the next one.
If you enjoyed today's episode, we'd ask that you leave a quick and honest review to help more business owners find the show.